Alright, let's see. Basic rules. Rule number 1. The Rule of Carnage. In Gaslands, if a rule is unclear, choose whichever option results in the most carnage for all concerned. This is the Rule of Carnage. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Marvelous Miniverse. So I picked up this book because I'd seen a lot of really cool post-apocalyptic fantasy miniature terrain that people have been making for it all over the internet. There's quite a bit of it out there, a lot of really good artwork, and I kind of wanted to get in on that and build some of my own. So I got the book and I got to reading it, and it sounds like it's going to be a really fun game, so now I'm even more excited about it. So I thought I'd start off with making the obstacles first, because it takes a lot more of those, more so than the actual game pieces for play, like the starts and the gates and all that stuff. So that's what this video is. I made a bunch of little obstacles out of just some wrecked cars, little die-cast models that I bought at the Dollar Tree. And I'm not going to yap at you any longer, just don't forget to subscribe and let's get on after it. Alright, so I started off with the bases, and I didn't really have any specific sizes in mind. I just cut down some chunks of spare MDF that I had laying around and trim the corners off and give it a bevel so they'd sit nice and flat and blend in. It's just 3/16 MDF. Just a bunch of different sizes there, and you just sand it down after you bevel it. Makes it look a lot better. And to base it, I used super glue and this basing stuff that I have. It started off at probably 30% baking soda and 70% sand, but it's probably pushing about 50-50 right now. You'll see why here in a minute. But I just glued some of that down and then made some little hills here and there with it. I used a lot of super glue. I used too much super glue, actually. I had to stop for a while and air out the room because it was starting to burn my eyes. And that super glue from the dollar store, that's the cheap stuff, comes 4 of those in a pack, and the black tubes like that is gel, and the white ones is not the gel, it's the runny stuff. But anyway, after that was dry, I glued some that's cat litter, and I used a clean cat litter because I didn't want to be disgusting, even though dirty cat litter would have probably fit in a little better for the post-apocalypse. But just clean cat litter here and there, a little more rubble. And once that was completely dry, I used the brush and brushed all that excess baking soda off of there. And this is why I have more baking soda in my little bowl. But you can see if you don't do this, all that baking soda clogs up in your paint and it gets all gunked up and looks like crap. But you just brush it off and collect it back up, and it still paints up really nice. So. And then I just had some plain brown craft paint. I mixed it with a little bit of water so that it ran down in all the cracks and stuff, and painted them up. And when that was dry, I got this khaki colored craft paint and to dry brush on there. And I started off doing it pretty light, but that didn't look quite right to me, so I went back over and did it pretty heavy. I really wanted it to look like really dry wastelandy, and I think it turned out better like that. Alright, now we're getting to the fun stuff. That's my bag from Dollar Tree. Of course, I had to get a bunch of super glue and these little 3 packs. For $1 a piece, man, you can't beat that. They're die cast and everything. Now they do have like a really glossy paint on them, and the glue didn't stick to them very well. Glue and paint stuff didn't stick to them, so I took some 220 sandpaper and sanded them all down. So I got my tools out and I went to town. Just started crushing them up with the pliers, cutting them up with the dikes, and what I found out is the metal held its shape and the plastic wanted to go right back, so I had to do a lot of cutting and stuff. And then I used a little combination of hot glue and super glue to glue them down, but it was pretty easy to wreck them, and it was a whole lot of fun to squeeze them up and pop them and get them looking all wrecked and crashed up. And most of these that I've seen on the internet, most of the people who do this, they kind of paint it all black and then just make them all look all rust colored. And initially I thought that was a good idea. You know, it's the apocalypse, right? Everything's been sitting around rusting for a while. But after I read through the book, there is no shortage of freshly wrecked cars in this game. So I decided to just leave the paint that's on them and just weather it from there. And I tried to do every car a little bit different, how I wrecked it, and made sure all the glass was broken, and then used that cheap super glue. And that cheap super glue gets a bad rap because it leaves that white dusty stuff, but as you can see there on the glass, it worked out really well for this purpose because it did leave that residue on the glass and fog it up and get it kind of dusty looking, which really worked out for me, I think. Yeah, and some of those cars I just cut chunks of them off to fit in little spaces. It was really fun. I had a really good time doing this build. Just trying to imagine what each little car, what kind of wreck it got in, what kind of accident it had, what crash it had if it flipped, and trying to put that damage into it. And some of them I figured out, less is more, just a little bit here and there, and leave some of it. That's where we're at now. Starting to look pretty good, I think. And I got a bunch of them done. And I had all these little bits left over that I used, especially those wheels. The wheels are pretty good little details. So I separated all those, and then I chopped up some of the other little bits that had details on them that you could kind of tell what they were, like the bumpers and the drivetrains and little pieces of the glass and stuff. And then I just started gluing those down here and there to where make little accents, little piled up junk. And so that's pretty much what we're looking at there. Just little bits here and there. Give it a little more flavor. Look a little more like a natural junk pile. Then I got the 220 sandpaper back out and weathered down, hit those surfaces that were sticking out the most to weather them a little bit. And I got that Army Painter rough iron and stippled that on in what I thought would be the most heavily rusted areas, where cars would rust out. Then I use a lighter to burn off all the hot glue strings and to give it a little bit of color, a little bit of burnt color, some of the soot from the lighter. Not a whole lot, and I wanted to make sure I didn't light all that super glue on fire. And that's kind of what they're looking at after that. And I went to the washes. So I took the Nuln Oil first and just slathered that stuff all over everything. Just everywhere except the base. I kept it off the base. I didn't want to darken that base down too much. And I really wanted to get all of the, like the bright paints, like the orange car and the yellow car, all the stuff that was really standing out as new. And that's key right there, because you got to have oil stains from your wrecked cars. So that's what it's looking like after that Nuln Oil dried. And then I took the Agrax Earthshade and went over parts of it, maybe 50% or so of the parts. I didn't want to hit everything. I just wanted to make another shade of junk and rust. So that's what it looked like after it dried. Starting to look pretty good. I'm starting to get pretty excited about it at this time, but it needs more rust. So I went back to that rough iron, and this time I just dry brushed it. And I went pretty heavy on some parts and lighter on other parts, but I wanted to hit all the edges and the corners and stuff that you know, where a car normally rusts. Try to keep it away from the windows, because windows don't rust. Rust looks bad on windows. So there you go. Looking pretty good. Looking pretty good. And there was a couple more things that I lost footage of. I did go back and dry brush everything with that khaki to put that dust color back on. And the little grass pieces, I just cut off bristles of just a chip brush. Just cut them off and glue them in there. Alright guys, so those are my crushed up car piles for Gaslands. Let me know what you think down below, and if you guys want to see more of this, or if you want me to go back to doing fantasy stuff, let me know down in the comments and I'll take that into account. There's plenty of more stuff that I need to build for Gaslands just to play a game. So let me know about that, let me know what you think. And if you want to see a lot more great content, everything to do with tabletop gaming, from RPGs to war games to Gundam building, you know, all the hobbies involved with that, and you know, unboxings and RPG reviews and all that. There's a couple links down at the bottom to the Tabletop Dungeoneers YouTube channel and the Discord server. Feel free to pop in there and stick your head around. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see more, and hit that little bell so that you can get notifications when I come out with new videos or drop comments or whatever in the community tab. And we'll see you next time.